Hi, everybody. So I am going to review the assignment. There are some folks who are missing from class that this is our next project. And so the prerequisite to this project is that you need to Google search art collections from museums not in the United States. What you're going to do is you're going to pick three art pieces that speak to you. It can be anything. It can be a sculpture. It can be a painting. It can be a photograph. It can be a collage. It could be anything. Okay. And what you're going to do is you're going to use these pieces. There is a large number of different things that we can use art for, and I am creating this unit to kind of step outside the box, if you will. One of the areas that we have not focused that I think is really, really important is to think about art and theater as inspiration. I think that it is a process where you use your imagination. We start to talk about concepts and feelings and ideas and all of that kind of stuff and imagined worlds. And as a director, you have to mold and form and create your vision, your concept for what your production is going to look like. And therein lies some of the challenge that is there. So with regards to the concept, it's this kind of lofty version of what the director envisions for the play. And by lofty, I mean like it's kind of out there. It's done with research, and you reflect and you read that script and you dig into what the characters are experiencing and why they're experiencing this and what are some of the things that are symbolic of the characters or symbolic of the location, if the location plays a part. And then you create a one sentence concept as a director that is your jumping off spot for the entire production. This video is kind of cheesy, but go ahead and watch it. I'm going to include it on the assignment so that you can kind of see what's expected for you. So your design concept really and truthfully has to be script based. It goes into what are the themes of the play. The visual aspects are sets and costumes and lighting and sound and things like that. And those can jump off of that director's concept. This is a really hard thing sometimes for directors to navigate through. And it's important to kind of understand thematic elements, concepts. It's loftier, it's bigger. So one of the things that I have done in my director's career is to tackle productions that are classics. And some of those areas are Shakespeare. My belief on Shakespeare is that it is a classic, but I don't think that it should be presented as a classic way. I think that in regards to educational theater, I think it's super important to put your own directorial spin on it and make it accessible for younger audiences. Because there are so many phenomenal storylines that he wrote about that can bring kind of a sense of adventure to the audience. And so young people need to find accessible ways to experience classics. So this is a poster from my production of Midsummer Night's Dream that we did down at North Little Rock. And as I was sitting down with the production team, I said, I want to try something new and inventive with this. I said there's a sense of the lovers are trying to break free from the confines and the structure of their parents. And they run out into the woods where they experience this band of fairies, these nymphs, and the nymphs are led by Titania and Oberon. So there's an entirely different, separate story. And then you've got this other group of players that are creating a play, and they're rehearsing in the forest themselves. And so I said, what are some of the things that like provide structure, provide control, like those parents are doing to these four lovers? And so we talked a lot about the use of black and white. We talked about columns. We talked about very structured ways of doing things. And even in movement, we used it. And so it brought about this moment here where we see this very black and white, almost 60s style of costuming and in set. And once they go into the forest, all of this stuff goes away. I wanted to try and kind of do it like a 60s Avengers style, very black and white, bowler hats, walking with a cane and umbrellas and things like that. And that these are the lovers are going to try and break free from that. As they get farther into the play, they start to add in color pops that really start to show that the lovers are changing and evolving and growing and falling more and more in love as the play progresses. I also thought it'd be really cool to play around visually with this idea of letting the fairies be this kind of like British punk goth, like glow in the dark kind of cool things. So you can kind of see different costume designs and mohawks and colors. And we used black light so that it glowed and popped and smoked and all of that. And then there's also the fight between the two male lovers over the girl. And so it evolved into this fight between the two guys with an umbrella and a cane. And it's all facilitated by Puck, who is up above, and smoke and all of that coolness. So a theme is basically the message of what the play is about. And it can be centered under a number of different things. This is a musical that I directed down at Little Rock at Argenta Community Theater. And it's not necessarily one of my favorite shows, but it was an opportunity for me to kind of get back into directing. It's a 60s styled show, very well known. And yet I wanted to kind of put a different spin on it. And so as I did my research and as I started thinking about the character Charity and going through what she goes through, the journey that she goes through in the regards to the show, I kind of came up with an idea of life and love is a game show. You got to play to win. You got to experience that. You're going to have to jump in. Otherwise, you're not going to experience life to its fullest. But you got to find the courage to be able to do that. And so as I was sitting down and talking to my design team, I talked about the aspects of love that were really enticing to people, and that it was nervousness, it was butterflies, it was electricity, it was heat, it was excitement, it was all these different things. And so I wanted to be able to try and kind of bring some of that to the table. But I didn't want it. The space is a smaller space, so the design is hard. I didn't want it to scream New York, which is where is the city of the location. But during the 60s, there was this kind of movement towards Cubist. And so Piet Mondrian was a huge artist during that time, and I loved this design. And it has that kind of city skyline feel to it. But I also loved this idea of the pop of color and the energy that brings. But I also liked that game show aspect. And so we had moments where we would do like a dance that was only in black light, and these things would pop and the colors would be really cool. So this was the set design that our designer came up with. And it has that kind of 60s game show feel with runner lights. And these were doors that would slide open, kind of like an elevator to bring in set pieces and things like that. And television screens to project where the location was for the next location. So this is a video of the advertisement, commercial ad, and you can kind of see the production itself. So make sure to kind of watch that when you get the chance. I also did a production of Macbeth that is Shakespeare, but wanted to kind of put a separate spin on it. And there's a beautiful production starring Patrick Stewart that it was amazing. It was glorious. That set it in 1940s in the war. And the witches were nurses in this hospital. And I loved that spin. So we've got, the three witches, and we've got a Rorschach, kind of thing, the blood and red and all of that kind of stuff. And so I decided to kind of come up with an aspect where the production was set in a abandoned insane asylum, kind of like an abandoned psych ward. And the porter is this very minor character. But a porter was basically the gatekeeper and the butler. And so what I thought was it would be really cool to set this in an abandoned insane asylum where the porter maybe saw too much. He was always present, and I always wanted to kind of lead that towards this man saw too much and basically went crazy and is forced to live in this abandoned insane asylum for the rest of his life, experiencing this story over and over and over and over and over. And so everybody is ghosts. They are coming in and out of the storyline, and so that was where we jumped from. So this is a picture of the porter, and we set it in the 1940s because I really loved that style. And all of the candles were flashlights. And so he starts this story off, and then this is one of the opening sequences. And we've got this very ritualistic, the nurses are, very, very scarily like shocking him, because electroshock during psychotherapy was very prevalent during this time period. And so we had all of the other characters in the dark kind of climbing through and doing all of this kind of grid work and screaming and doing all of this kind of pre stuff that would end in this moment where the witches started to kind of speak their opening sequence. This is a clip of the trailer of the piece starring Patrick Stewart. It is so good. Make sure that you watch it. But even the final, or in the moments where Banquo's ghost appears, we had him shoot out of the center of a banquet table and rip off the black cloth, and it was all this red tablecloth fabric. Lady Macbeth, her down spots sequence is supposed to be with a candle, but we used it with the flashlight and played with the shadows on her face and all of that. It was so much fun. Big River is the last show that I directed. And when I came to the design crew, what I asked for was this. It's the story of Huckleberry Finn through Mark Twain and his trip down the Mississippi River with the slave Jim. And by the end of the musical, Jim and Huck arrive at the end of their journey, and Jim decides that he is going to go up into the north to try and find his wife and daughter and find freedom. And Huck suddenly realizes that he can't go back. He can't go back to the way that it was with Widow Douglas. back in Missouri. And so there's a sense of childhood that's left behind. And we as adults kind of experience that, at some points in our lives where we look back and we go, wow, I can't go back to being a child anymore. I've got too much responsibility and all of that. And so we talked a lot about this idea of the fact that it is set on a river predominantly, and that it needed to be more of like a Mississippi bayou, like a dock. We need to have that dock feel. But I also wanted to entertain the idea of like an abandoned childhood playground, which is this image here. And I also said, you know what? And I love all of the lighting that kind of feels like stars that are hanging. Maybe we can have lanterns or things like that. We could use some creative lighting and things. And so this is kind of what we got in a set design. And you can see all of the different areas, the slider doors to be able to bring on set pieces, the slider that is the little raft that they ride on. And you can see kind of a dock area. And then we had some ladders that we built in and different areas so that they could jump down and they could play around and they could do all these different things. And so that it kind of had that kind of play-like aspect. And so this was one of the moments in the show, and you can see the lanterns kind of creating that star-like sky. It was such a fun, powerful production that I'm super, super proud of. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at your 3 art pieces, and you're going to try to pick one. It's not necessarily a requirement. You're going to take a moment and kind of look at that and think about what comes to mind. What drew you to that piece? Be specific. Is it the people that are in the piece? Is it a feeling about that piece? Is it maybe it's like a dark versus light motif? Think about what it is that drew you to that piece. Write it down if you need to. Okay. Then you are going to, this is your next step. You are going to create a scene or a monologue using that art piece or 2, okay, if you need to combine it. Your goal is you're going to write, whether it's a monologue or a scene between 2, scene between 3, whatever, you're going to write this using that art piece as inspiration, the thematic element of it, and you're going to create a strong beginning, middle, and an end, okay? There's not a length requirement to this, okay? It has to have a strong beginning, middle, and an end, and it just needs to be centered on the theme of that art piece, okay? You're not recreating the art piece whatsoever in regards to the performance, so get that out of your mind. It's literally thinking about thematic elements or relationships of characters within the piece, and you're going to write a scene using that piece, okay? You have the entire week to be able to make that happen, okay? Because on Monday of next week, because we have testing this week, and we won't be back together again until next Monday, okay? On Monday, you'll bring that scene in, and then the seniors are going to help you navigate through this project as a group, and we're going to put together a performance using these art pieces, okay? But for right now, just create a scene, a monologue or a scene, dialogue, with a strong beginning, middle, and an end using the theme of the art piece. You can combine as many as you need to. And as always, reach out if you have any questions. Okay? I'm excited about this opportunity. So it's going to be a good one. Email me if you have questions.